Great. Thanks, Virginia. And yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get into the presentation today. So before I start, if anyone has an animal, be that a pet or a large animal, if you want to share that in the chat, I'd be really interested to hear all about your pets. I know when people ask me about my own pet, I'm very eager to share. So yes, definitely feel free to use that chat and share if you have pets of your own. And I will share my screen. Can you see my presentation? It looks okay.
Yeah, it looks very good.
Okay, perfect. So we will jump right in. So I want to start with a land acknowledgement. I know Virginia did a really great one as well, but I want to do one of my own because it is important. So I would like to acknowledge that this presentation is taking place on Treaty 6 territory. I'm also located in Saskatoon today. The lands that I live and work on are the ancestral and existing lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Dene, Nakota, Lakota, and Métis nations. I acknowledge that this land is traveling routes, hunting grounds, and gathering spaces, and I also recognize the impact that colonialism has had on these ways of life. I would like to use this moment to reflect on what truth and reconciliation means to each of us and how animals and the animal welfare sector can play an important role in that. And I can't see the chat, but if anyone has any questions or anything of that sort, please feel free to stick them in there. Maybe Virginia, as they come up, you can feel free to stop me and we can talk about those questions as they come up. So yes, like Virginia said, my name is Laura Zmud and I am the Family Ties Coordinator for the Saskatchewan SPCA. So we are a provincial organization and I'll get a little bit into what the Saskatchewan SPCA is and who we are. I'm a registered social worker and of course an animal lover. And this is my cat Mabel. She's very spoiled and yeah, she's perfect. So just a really brief outline for the day. Hopefully I will not go over time and we'll have some time for questions and that sort of thing afterwards. So like I said, we're going to speak really briefly about who the Saskatchewan SPCA is, the health benefits of a companion animal, considerations to make when you might be considering having a companion animal with you. And when I say companion animal, I basically mean a pet in your home. And we will briefly touch on older adult abuse and the link with animal abuse. And then, of course, the loss of a pet. So who we are, the Saskatchewan SPCA, we're an animal welfare organization. We've been around for quite a few years, 94 years coming up this year. And we work to improve the human and animal welfare. So we recognize that both animals and human are important in our work. We advise and inform about humane treatment, safekeeping, and the well-being of animals, and we work to advance policy in a preventative approach rather than reactive. So like I mentioned, our head office is in Saskatoon. We have quite a small staff. There is, I believe, 8 of us, but we're very dedicated and I do think that we get a lot done with our small number, which is really great. We're privately funded. We don't receive any government funding of any sort, and we are a registered charitable organization. So we're provincial in scope, but we are not in charge of any other SPCAs or humane societies. So in Canada, every SPCA and humane society, every rescue, every animal organization is independent completely. So we do not have any say in what any of the other SPCAs or humane societies do or don't do. And so here I've just provided a bit of a list of all the other SPCAs and humane societies in our province. So the Sask SPCA believes that all animals should enjoy, as a minimum, the 5 essential freedoms, which were first described by the Animal Welfare the Farm Animal Welfare Council, and that is the freedom from hunger and thirst, the freedom from discomfort, the freedom from pain, injury, or disease, the freedom to express normal behavior, and the freedom from fear and distress. So as we're going through and doing our different programming here at the SPCA, we do keep these 5 freedoms in mind and think, how are we achieving these freedoms through our programming and through the work that we do. So we do not investigate animal cruelty concerns. We did until 2015, and then at that point, the Saskatchewan SPCA stopped enforcing the Animal Protection Act, and they stopped looking into animal cruelty. And because of that, the Animal Protection Services of Saskatchewan was formed. And so, like I said, we do not do any animal abuse or neglect concerns. That is Animal Protection Services of Saskatchewan and Regina Humane Society. So Regina Humane Society covers small animals within the city of Regina, and Animal Protection Services covers all other areas of the province. So we are an office. We do not operate a shelter, unfortunately. When you come into our space, there's no kittens and puppies to cuddle, and we don't facilitate animal adoptions. And we have no animals except for these 2 lovely little fish that we got this past summer. So they're great. We love having them in our office. So they are Kissick and Floyd, are our two fish. So that was a little bit about us and where I work and who we are. And now we'll move into the human-animal bond and really a bit more of what we're here to talk about today. So the human-animal bond has been defined in multiple ways, but one definition that I like is the human-animal bond is the mutually beneficial and dynamic relationships between people and animals. It is influenced by behaviors that are essential to the health and well-being of both. While the pet effect, or the human-animal bond, has been scientifically documented to improve the health and well-being of people, research has also supported that the human-animal bond improves welfare for animals as well. So I like this definition because it shows that it's a reciprocal relationship. Both parties, the humans and the animals, are both benefiting, and they're both having an improved life because of one another. So I just have a little video. Hopefully the volume works. We shall see.
I found a way to relieve my depression.
I found a way to lower my cholesterol.
I found a way to strengthen my immune system.
I found better health with cat.
In clinical studies, prescription strength cat has been shown to be effective in strengthening your immune system, preventing allergies in children, lowering cholesterol and triglyceride levels, reducing stress, and decreasing anxiety and depression. Side effects may include difficulty breathing because a cat is sleeping on your face, trouble working because a cat is on your computer, issues packing because a cat is in your suitcase. You may experience trouble peeing because your cat is staring at you. You may spend all day posting pictures of your cat on social media. Some cat owners experience nausea at the sight of dead rodents on their doorstep. Things may fall from tall surfaces and break because your cat knocked it off and doesn't give a kitty litter. You may feel a strange sensation that you don't own your cat and that your cat actually owns you. Discover better health. Ask your veterinarian about cat.
So I like that little video because it's fun, but it also shows that there are real benefits to having a cat or another animal in your life. Okay, so some of the pet benefits that we will look at really briefly are that they combat loneliness, they lower stress, they increase physical activity, they increase your socialization, and they give a sense of purpose and meaning. So each of these we're going to kind of dive into a little bit more. So this is a quote from one of my coworkers who is an older adult, and she says that definitely having a dog provides a positive impact on my life. He is happy and makes me laugh daily. I inherited Milo from my daughter after our family dog passed away. He is part of the family, and he will be for the rest of his life. So some pretty clear connections and love for little Milo in that quote. Oops. Okay, so loneliness. So of course the problem, many older adults live alone and loneliness is common. And as we know, loneliness can have very harmful physical effects and mental effects on an individual and can be associated with depression, heart disease, cognitive decline, mobility and daily function decline, and increased risk of earlier death. And so the pet solution. So pets do provide companionship. They give their attention and love without judgment, and they reduce feelings of isolation and depression. And they can ease the loss of a loved one if you're grieving. So another problem is high blood pressure or heart rate, anxiety, or other factors, and all of those can have, again, negative physical and mental impacts. And so the pet solution is pets can provide a calming and in the moment presence. Pets don't care about what's happening next week. They don't really care about what's happened last week. They are really good for making you be in the moment and in that present moment with them. And the motion of petting or brushing an animal repetitively, it does lower blood pressure, and that has been proven in research and that sort of thing. And it also lowers, having an animal lowers your baseline heart rate and blood pressure. So over time, having an animal in your life and in your home will be very positive in physical ways. Increased physical activity. So the problem is as we age, our level of physical activity may decline. That may be because we are a little bit more isolated, or maybe don't have as many things to go out and about to do, or perceived that we don't have as many things to go out to do. So this may result in obesity, mobility loss, ability to do daily activities of living, or other health concerns. And so the pet solution is ultimately increased physical activity, because you're going to be moving throughout the day with that animal and caring for that animal. And that doesn't necessarily always mean going for a long hour walk with your dog. It could be a range of movements of bending over to feed them, or lifting up their bag of food, walking them, like I had mentioned, maybe exercising with them, so throwing a ball or a frisbee for them, or playing with toys, and things that maybe aren't so enjoyable, like scooping litter boxes or bending over to pick up after your dog has pooped. Those are all good range of movements, and they will increase your physical activity and your mobility. And so ultimately, with all of those little things, getting up throughout the day to let them out into the backyard, that will maintain your mobility for longer. So socialization and isolation, similar to loneliness, as you age, we may be less socially involved or choose to stay at home and to ourselves. So the pet solution, a great icebreaker. So people love talking about their pets. People love asking other people about their pets. So if you're maybe out walking with your dog, that might entice somebody to stop and want to pet your dog, and then that would in turn start a conversation and give you that little bit of social connection that way. Can't speak today. Other options for great icebreakers is if you have people coming over to your home and they see maybe a cat laying on your couch or a bunny here in this picture, they'll ask about it. And again, that's a good conversation starter. And in order to care for your pet, you will need to get supplies and that sort of thing. And so it will force you to go out and about into your community a little bit more. So a sense of purpose and meaning. The problem is that our family and friends may come to depend less on us, and retirement can cause a lack of, or a sense of lack of purpose. So the pet solution is that you are responsible to care for your pet. You need to be there for them, and they really do depend on you to get all of their needs met. And it also, in turn, provides an opportunity for self-care, and so that will improve your physical and mental well-being. So all of that being said, all of these lead to improved physical and mental well-being. Again, going back to that human-animal bond definition, it's beneficial for both you as the human as well as the animal that you choose to have in your life. So it's mutually beneficial for both of you. So there's been lots of studies out there around the physical benefits of having an animal in your life and the physical benefits of the human-animal bond. And so I just wanted to include this one graphic, but like I said, there are many, many studies out there that do kind of prove this similar outcome. And so health benefits that pet owners reported were 79% reported that they had reduced their stress levels by having a pet. 73% provided a sense of purpose. 65% said that their pet helped them connect with others. And 64% said that their pet helped them become more physically active. And this is a relatively recent study from 2019. And yeah, those are some significant numbers, and it's great to see. So if you are considering bringing a pet into your life, there's kind of lots to consider no matter what stage in your life you are at. So I thought I would just pull together some things to consider so that you can make the best and most informed decision for you and your lifestyle if you are looking at bringing in a pet to your life. So some considerations would be the species and breed of your pet. Maybe if you get a husky dog, they will have a lot of energy, need a lot of walking, a lot of training and that sort of thing, perhaps compared to maybe a bunny that could stay in your home or in your apartment or condo, and maybe not need as much of a physical demand from you. So the age of your pet and of yourself, the typical age range for a cat is around 15 to 16. My cat lived to be 19. I know lots of cats that live into their early 20s, and so it is a long-term commitment. And dogs, the average life is right around 10 years. If it's a smaller dog, it could be much higher. Maybe around the 15, 16 mark as well. And if it's a larger dog, it may be a bit younger, around the 9-year mark or so. And so considering your age and adding on that 15 years if you are getting a cat or a small dog, and thinking about what will your lifestyle be in 15 years, and will you be able to have the capacity to care for that dog or that cat or that other pet that might be a better fit. And other considerations is what happens if you have to move out of your current home or if you pass away before your pet. So if you have to move, there are a few places that are pet friendly, long-term care homes and retirement villas and such, but unfortunately there's not many right now. Hopefully that will be changing in the next few years as people kind of push for that, but right now it is quite limited. And so considering, if I need to move into a different living situation, can I bring my animal with me? And if not, what is an alternative? Could my kids take them? Could I rehome it to a friend? What does that look like? And similarly, if you pass away before your pet, if you have a will or something of that sort, pets can certainly be included in that. I know there was one dog that I was included in the family's will, and that dog would have been mine if the individual passed away before the dog. The dog did pass before the human, and so that never did come, but there was that pre-planning, and I was very aware of the situation and very willing to take the dog if need be. And so just thinking ahead for those sorts of things. And the daily activity requirements and lifestyle. So again, I kind of briefly mentioned it there when I was speaking about the species and the breed of the pet, but considering, what does that type of animal need? Do they need 2 or 3 walks a day, or do they just need maybe 15 minutes of playtime with you, or do they just need to be let out of their cage and maybe have some time to hop around in your home if they're a bunny or something like that? But considering those daily requirements, as well as your own lifestyle, if you're traveling lots or that sort of thing, and you need to be there to care for your animal, who is going to provide that care while you're gone? So just some more considerations. Again, if you do have to move, or if you're in a current situation where you have a landlord or you have building restrictions, lots of apartment and condo buildings will have size restrictions on animals, or landlords will be reluctant to allow animals. There may be an additional fee for that sort of thing. So it's really something to look into ahead of time. If you are looking, or if you're needing to move, what are those restrictions in place? So financial commitment, pets can be expensive, but they can also be, financially feasible per se, for a lack of a better word. But there is lots of things to consider: vet care, ongoing vet care, emergency vet care, food, and if they need any special medications or that sort of thing. If you are traveling and you need to get a dog sitter or a pet sitter to come in, or give your animal to a boarding kennel for a few days, there's a cost consideration there as well. If you have an animal now, or if you're planning on getting one, I would strongly recommend getting insurance for your animal. So I have insurance for my cat Mabel, and it costs me $19 a month, and it covers basically everything except for her annual routine vet care, which is vaccines, and her annual checkup, but it covers all emergency care and anything beyond that. And so I personally am a big advocate for insurance, and I would strongly recommend it if you have a pet now, or if you're looking at getting one. So emergency care. This one, emergency care, I'm speaking to the human emergency care. So if you do need to go into a hospital or other emergency care, who might be looking after your animals if that happens? And often, if you are in that situation, you should be thinking about your own care, and remembering who's going to feed my cat at home. It might not come to top of mind, and so having that planned ahead of time is, if I have to go into the hospital, who is going to care for them, is definitely something to look into. And always asking friends and family for support. If you need help driving to a vet appointment, or if you need help getting a bag of food or that sort of thing, just asking for support is always good. And lastly, personal travel. So again, if you're planning on going away, who is going to come into your home, or where are you going to take your animal to care for them? Or are you going to take your animal with you? I know that there's an increased number of hotels and that sort of thing that are becoming pet friendly, which is really great. So maybe you can take your dog or your cat with you where you're traveling. So having a pet full time is a big commitment. You're committing to them ideally for their lifetime, and it could, as we mentioned earlier with finances, it could be out of your budget range, but the physical and mental perks are worth having an animal in your life, even if it may not be for full time. So some things that you could consider if you're not ready or not able to have an animal full time or for full cost would be to foster or volunteer at a local rescue or SPCA at their shelter. So I know that there's lots of local rescues around that could always use more fosters, and they're very willing to help if you're unable to drive to vet appointments or that sort of thing, but you're still able to care for them for the majority of the time. Yeah, there's lots of great rescues and shelters. The SPCA, if you want to go and maybe pet some cats and spend time socializing them or work, running around and exercising with the dogs, then that can definitely be something that you can look into. Co-owning. So co-owning you could do with a friend or with one of your kids, and it's what it sounds like exactly. You co-own the animal, and so costs can be shared, time commitments can be shared, and you're still able to have that animal in your life and still have that connection to them. And lastly, providing daycare. So if you know someone that maybe still works full time and they have a dog that maybe needs some socialization during the day, you could offer to provide daycare, and the individual can drop their pet off with you in the morning on their way to work and pick it up at the end of the day when they're on their way home from work. And yeah, just providing daycare services or going to let the animal out for pee at a lunch break or that sort of thing can be something that can still give you that animal connection, but maybe without the full-time commitment and the full cost commitment as well. And so I did want to point out one program that we have in Saskatoon is through New Hope Dog Rescue. So New Hope Dog Rescue is a foster-based rescue in Saskatoon here, and they have what's called a hospital care program. It is the first in Saskatchewan and among the first in Canada, which is really fantastic. So the program is free or minimal cost, depending on your financial situation, to the individual. And when or if you need to go into the hospital, New Hope will be able to take in your animal temporarily and provide care for them in a foster home. So your animal will be placed in a foster home, given great care and love and attention while you're in the hospital caring for yourself. And then when you get out and you're able to resume care for your animal, then New Hope would facilitate getting your pet back to you. So that's a really great program, and yeah, they've had great success with it in the last, well, almost year since they started in last October. So here's another quote from one of my other coworkers, and she says, "He is always there waiting for me in the window when I come home. He's a source of comfort and companionship. The main things I considered before getting Chris was my age and if the timing in my life was right after my last pet had passed away." So again, those considerations as how old am I, and maybe what is that plus 15, what is that going to look like? And am I ready for that emotionally and physically, financially? Am I ready to take on the responsibility of another animal? So thankfully, as I had mentioned earlier, depending on where you might have to move, they may not be pet friendly, but our world and Saskatoon particularly is becoming more pet friendly, and that includes lots of programming for older adults and lots of options as well. And so there are an increasing number of long-term care homes and retirement villas that are pet friendly, such as Sherbrooke, such as Primrose Chateau, which is a retirement villa. Those are pet friendly among others. And there's lots of therapy dog programs and pets that are involved in your physical health treatment plans or mental health treatment plans. And that could be like this picture, therapy dogs coming to visit in the hospital, and just really boosting that feel-good feeling when you're recovering. Lots of workplaces are allowing staff to bring your pet to work. Sometimes they have focus days where it's a bring your pet to work day. And sometimes it's just within the work policy that if you want to bring your pet in, you certainly can. I know my grandma lived in a retirement villa for a number of years, and the manager there she would rotate between bringing her cat and her little dog that was about the size of this dog in the picture. And both of them, they would just go from room to room and do their check-ins with everyone. And it was really great for all the folks that were in the building. And of course, as I mentioned, there's lots of volunteer opportunities for shelters and rescues, and I'm sure they would be very eager to hear from you. And if it's not specifically that you're wanting to volunteer to foster an animal or to care directly for them, they do have lots of other volunteer opportunities, like helping out with booths at trade shows and that sort of thing. So I did want to touch on older adult abuse and animal abuse. And so if this is a sensitive subject, I just want to give you that forewarning. I have about 3 slides on this topic. So older adult abuse can happen in many forms, and some of the key ways that abuse can look like is, of course, physical abuse. If you have a caregiver, there could be neglect or abandonment occurring. There could be financial exploitation and emotional abuse. So comparing that to animal abuse, that they can look very similar. There can be physical abuse, there can be caregiver neglect or abandonment, and there can be emotional abuse as well. And so we know, and there's a growing amount of research, we know that these types of abuses don't happen in isolation. And so if we see one form of abuse happening, such as older adult abuse, there may also be other forms of violence in the home. So there may be child abuse happening, there may be animal abuse happening, or there may be domestic violence happening in the home, and vice versa for all of those. So if we see one, there is a high chance that there are other forms happening. And so recognizing, if there is animal abuse, maybe checking in on your friends and seeing if there is some caregiver neglect or abuse happening, or financial exploitation happening if they're dependent on some of their family members to help them. So abusers may harm or threaten to harm a pet to control the person being abused. For example, they might say, if you go and tell your friend that I'm abusing you, then this is what's going to happen to you, and they might beat the animal as a fear tactic and as a threat, so that will prevent the person being abused from going to tell a trusted person. And this could include not feeding the pet, so neglecting the pet's needs, not letting them outside to use the washroom, or physically harming the pet. So again, it could be physical or emotional abuse happening. And so if you are experiencing abuse, or if you know someone that is experiencing abuse, you can call a local crisis line, or 211, or talk to a trusted friend or a healthcare provider, including a doctor or a dentist. Yeah. And so lastly, I wanted to touch on the loss of a pet. So we've talked this whole presentation around the really strong connection and the great positive impacts that having an animal in your life provides. But then what happens when we lose that pet and when their life comes to an end? And so, of course, with that really deep and strong connection will also come really deep sadness and a great sense of grief as well. And so, as your pet ages, it's really important to have a strong relationship with your veterinarian, to discuss, their health and making sure that they're comfortable and really have a great quality of life. And ultimately, so that you are connected to a health professional with your veterinarian to discuss end of life decisions with, if it comes to that time. So there are some pet loss support groups in Saskatoon. So Family Pet Cremation Services, they are located on, I'm trying to think, on 33rd and 2nd Avenue is where they're located, and they have in-person support groups, as well as one-on-one phone calls that you can call at any time. And you can find them by just Googling Family Pet Cremation Services. And alternatively, there is also a Facebook group specific for Saskatoon, and that's called Saskatoon Pet Loss Support. So really briefly, in summary, I'm just looking at the time. So we went over who the Saskatchewan SPCA is and kind of what we do, the health benefits of a companion animal, considerations for if you're looking into getting a companion animal, older adult abuse and animal abuse, and of course, the loss of a pet. And so that is kind of the end of my presentation. Yeah, hopefully that all made sense. And if there's any questions or comments, discussion, anything of that sort, I would be more than happy to hear them. And we are looking for volunteers here at the Saskatchewan SPCA. So if you're looking at volunteering, be that at a booth at a trade show or driving some pet food around to deliver for us, definitely feel free to give us a phone call.
Okay, thanks very much, Laura. That was a lot of great information. So does anyone have any questions for Laura? You can type them in your chat box. I've got some.
Sure.
So are there any pets that would be the best options for older adults, or would it depend on the individual's needs or lifestyle?
Yeah, I think that it would depend on individual needs and lifestyle, like you said, Virginia. But I think that there's maybe some that wouldn't be so great, perhaps such as a puppy that is a large breed dog, just for a safety concern as well. They may be great and really lovable, but maybe if they jump up, that might be a safety concern. And same with, needing the high level of energy every day that they have, the level of walks and training and that sort of thing. Yes, and I mean, I'm a sucker for cats, so I will always recommend a cat. But yes, I do think smaller animals, small dogs, small cats, caged animals can be really great. Even fish. fish give you you get to look at them. Like I said, we have them in our office, which is really great. But it also is that routine of feeding them every day and still being on top of things. So long answer short, there's no specific animal. But yeah, lots of things to consider.
And we have a question here. Someone would like to volunteer, so she would like to know how to go about doing that.
Great. Yes. So if you'd like to volunteer with us, you can give us a phone call at, so our phone number is 306-382-7722. And I'll just put that in the chat.
Oh.
Or if you are, there we go. Yes, that's perfect. So yes, so that is our general line, and you'll get Crystal, who's our lovely administrator. And yeah, we can go over types of things that you would like to volunteer with, and your ability and that sort of thing. I'm not sure, I see the comment about a security check. I'm not sure about that. That'll be a question for Crystal. I'm not exactly sure what the requirements are for volunteers. Yeah, but yes, definitely feel free to give us a call. We would love that.
Any more questions? This is kind of a silly question. There are so many animals that are in shelters right now. Would you recommend that an older adult adopt from a shelter as opposed to like a pet store or something?
Yes. So I would say definitely always support your local shelter or your local rescue. And some pet stores are starting to, they partner with local shelters and partner with local rescues. And so the animals that are in pet stores, thankfully, are no longer coming from breeding operations or from puppy mills or that sort of thing. And they're coming from the local shelters, which is really great. But yes, 100%, if you're looking at adopting, yeah, go to your local shelter for sure.
Spaying and neutering can control the pet population, and the city of Saskatoon has a program, but I just looked on the website and they're not accepting applications until 2023. Yeah. And you had mentioned pet insurance. Is that the best option for getting those services for your pet, for like maybe low income?
Yeah, so pet insurance typically, I don't want to speak on behalf of all of the different insurance options, but they typically don't cover routine surgeries, which would include spay and neuter, unfortunately. But if you do have a relationship with a veterinarian, and you are able to explain, that you are a low income family and that sort of thing, they may give a seniors discount or some sort of discount to them. Yeah.
We'll get another question here. Given that there's so much benefit for seniors to have a pet, it is a huge shame that the Saskatoon Housing Authority, which runs a large number of seniors apartments, does not allow pets, not even a bird or a fish. Well, that's too bad.
It is, yes, it is a huge shame. Definitely. Yeah. I have no words other than I 100% agree with you, Tanya.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we are at the SPCA here at the Sask SPCA. We are working on putting out a landlord survey to all of Saskatchewan for individual landlords as well as properties such as the Saskatoon Housing Authority and kind of bigger companies like that, to really hear from them why, lots of landlords will think, well, they cause a lot of damage. Or they'll chew up the carpet, when in reality that's not true. That's maybe a myth or a fear that they've heard from other landlords.
Is there a support system for someone who loses their dog? Like my mom's had a dog all her life. She just loved dogs. And this one she has now is very sick with glandular cancer and is dying. And it's going to devastate her because she's always had a dog and she just loves this one to pieces. It's been like it's almost been like another child for her. So I know it's going to be hard when we lose her. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah, that is really hard. I'm sorry to hear that your family is going through that. I'm just going to see if I can find Family Pet Cremation, their website, and then I can stick it in the chat. So they have a pet loss support group, and it says here confidential telephone support, one-on-one support, as well as twice monthly, like in-person support groups. So that is one that I would recommend looking into for your mom and for your family. And if, depending on the vet clinic that you go to, so at the vet college, for example, they do have a veterinary social worker that is there. And so if it does come time for end of life for that pet, you could request, sorry, I lost the word. You could request social work support, and that is a service that they do offer. But it's hard. It's really hard. Yeah.
It was interesting. You just had a slide on the link between the forms of abuse, like between older adult abuse and animal abuse. Do you see was there a higher incidence, or maybe you wouldn't be able to answer of this type of abuse during the pandemic, or was it just?
That is a good question. I don't know of any research or any projects that have looked specifically at older adult abuse during the pandemic, but I do know there has been research coming from domestic violence within Saskatchewan and showing that there has been an increase in that. Additionally, speaking with Animal Protection Services of Saskatchewan, so they do animal protection for all of the province, excluding the city of Regina. They have had record numbers of calls and of animals seized, unfortunately, and that sort of thing. And so I would make the assumption that yes, there is a higher rate of violence because there is a higher rate of domestic violence over COVID, and as well as animal abuse and animal cases that have been reported. So I think it would be a safe assumption to make. Yeah.
And so is somebody like Animal Protection Services of Saskatchewan would be the place to call for if somebody sees an animal being abused, or?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So if you see an animal being abused or neglected, then yes, definitely Animal Protection Services of Saskatchewan is the organization that you would call. Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any more questions for Laura? And this recording will be on our YouTube channel on our website as well. So
great.
Well, if there's no more questions, I would like to thank Laura so much for all this valuable insights in the human-animal relationship and all the great information. And don't forget to check out all our upcoming classes on our website, scoa.ca. So thank you so much for attending, everyone, and we'll see you next time. And thanks again, Laura and the Saskatchewan SPCA.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye now.